Job chapter 22. Go ahead.
I feel like Eliphaz is getting a little bit carried away in this.
He really is, yeah, he really is getting carried away.
Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, Can a man be profitable unto God, as he that is wise may be profitable unto himself? Is it any pleasure to the Almighty that thou art righteous? Or is it gain to him that thou makest thy ways perfect? Will he reprove thee for fear of thee? Will he enter with thee into judgment? Is not thy wickedness great, and thine iniquities infinite?
So I'm guessing we got that pretty much understood. That's
Mostly, yeah.
okay. Where you got any issues?
Will he reprove thee for fear of thee?
Is God being mean to you because he's scared because you're more righteous than he is? Basically what he's saying there.
And thine iniquities infinite. Goodness. Verse 6. For thou hast taken a pledge from thy brother for naught, and stripped the naked of their clothing. Thou hast not given water to the weary to drink, and thou hast withholden bread from the hungry. But as for the mighty man, he had the earth, and the honorable man dwelt in it. That 6 confused me.
6. Has taken a pledge from my brother for naught. Taking a pledge is like security for a loan, not down payment, collateral. Collateral is the word I'm looking for. So he's saying he took the collateral, even though his brother made payment, even though he did what he was supposed to do. He just went ahead and took the collateral anyway, and stripped the naked of their clothing.
How do you do that? How are you going to strip the naked of their clothing?
Yeah, that's hard. No, what is talking about here is if a man is poor, if a person is poor, the only thing that they tend to have is their cloak, what they wrap themselves up in at night. So if that's all you have, then generally speaking, what someone will do is they'll say, well, I'll give you a loan, but you're going to have to give me something to make sure that I get my money back. And so the law specifically says, if you take a man's cloak for a pledge, you should give it back before the sun goes down so that he has something to sleep in. And so I think this has a bearing on that. So that it's saying that he's broken the law by taking their cloak as a pledge, but not returning it to them. So that the point is, okay, well, this is my collateral, it's my cloak, but I'll need it back tonight, and in the morning I'll give it back to you. And so that would be the way it would work, the way I understand it anyway.
Yeah.
So he would have to continue each morning, go back and receive that cloak again until the debt was repaid. And so he would sleep in it every night, but he'd make sure that he kept it during the day, just as collateral against that loan.
And verse 8. But as for the mighty man, he had the earth, and the honorable man dwelt in it. I guess that the mighty man owned the earth. I don't understand.
Be perfectly honest with you, I'm going to have to look that one up because I'm not really sure myself. Job 22 and 8. I'll pull up my commentary here. See what Adam Clark says. Yeah, Adam Clark doesn't say anything. That's Barnes' side. Okay. Barnes says the meaning is that Job was that mighty man, and he had driven the poor from their possessions and had taken forcible occupancy of what belonged to them. The idea is that he had done these things by his power and not by his right. Had the earth, he took possession of land and drove off those who it belonged to. In that first part. Job had great possessions, but this charge as to the manner in which he had acquired them seems to be wholly gratuitous. Eliphaz takes it for granted that since he was so severely punished, that it must have been that he took possession in a very bad way. The great man, the man of rank, wealth, and office, hath got a possession, while the humble and poor banish. So he's accusing Job of gaining his position by impropriety, by being cruel and unusual in his treatment of those he dealt with.
Yeah, he's saying some pretty wicked things about Job in here.
Yeah, like Job said earlier, would it be good if God were to search you out? I'm wondering if some of these things he may not be guilty of. I notice just in life, you see that those who are guilty are often the ones who accuse other people of doing the things that they are guilty of in order to offset or shift the guilt off of themselves and try to shift it onto somebody else. Misplacement.
It's the same way that people are doing wrong, or paranoid that other people are doing the same thing to them.
Absolutely. Yep.
Alright, verse 9. Thou hast sent widows away empty, and the arms of the fatherless have been broken.
So he's a mean loan shark.
Therefore snares are round about thee, and sudden fear troubleth thee, or darkness that thou canst not see, and abundance of waters cover thee. Is not God in the height of heaven? And behold the height of the stars, how high they are. And thou sayest, how doth God know? Can he judge through the dark cloud? Thick clouds are a covering to him, that he seeth not, and he walketh in the circuit of heaven. Hast thou marked the old way which wicked men have trodden, which were cut down out of time, whose foundation was overflown with a flood, which said unto God, depart from us, and what can the Almighty do for them? Yet he filled their houses with good things, but the counsel of the wicked is far from me. The righteous see it and are glad, and the innocent laugh them to scorn. Whereas our substance is not cut down, but the remnant of them the fire consumeth. Acquaint now thyself with him, and be at peace, thereby good shall come unto thee. Receive, I pray thee, the law from his mouth, and lay up his words in thine heart. If thou return to the Almighty, thou shalt be built up. Thou shalt put away iniquity far from thy tabernacle. Then shalt thou lay up gold as dust, and the gold of Ophir as the stones of the brooks. What is it in 15:16? Hast thou marked the old way which the wicked men had trodden, which were cut down out of time, whose foundation was overflown with a flood.
Yeah, just talking about those who have sinned in the past.
Yeah, I get that he's talking about the flood, probably of Noah's time.
Well, not necessarily so, but potentially that is a possibility. But he's just generally speaking of wicked people of the past, and saying, don't you know that everybody who's wicked, they're cut down out of time. at a time when they don't expect it, early in life, when everything seems to be going well, at some way or another, it seemed to be a pleasant time, and they were cut down. Now,
Okay.
once again, whether that was Noah's flood or the flood of destruction that came upon them because of their wickedness, I don't know that that's clear. But
Yeah, that cut down out of time for
Right.
me. What was I? 25. Yea, the Almighty shall be thy defense, and thou shalt have plenty of silver, for then shalt thou have thy delight in the Almighty, and shalt lift up thy face unto God. Thou shalt make thy prayer unto him, and he shall hear thee, and thou shalt pray thy vows. Thou shalt also decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee, and the light shall shine upon thy ways. Thou shalt also decree a thing.
mhm. It's just, once again, very generic speech. You'll say something is going to be so, and it's going to happen the way you say. So
God will make
I'll,
it so.
yeah, I'll say just I'm going to build a house, and the house gets built. I'll say you're guilty of this particular charge, and it's so. Whatever it is that he says, that same thing will be known as the truth. So he's basically saying once you repent, once you turn away from your wickedness, God's going to treat you good again, and everything's going to be right. Thou shalt make thy prayer, and he shall hear thee. Thou shalt pay thy vows. Once again, speaking of doing those things that you promised, and all things will be well, and the light shall shine upon thy ways. Everything is going to be perfect, but you got to stop being evil. Like I've said, how bad you are already. You got to stop all that stuff.
29. When men are cast down, then thou shalt say, there is lifting up, and he shall save the humble person. He shall deliver the island of the innocent, and it is delivered by the pureness of thine hands.
So once again, he's pretty much saying what Job said that he's already done. When men are cast down, he's the one who lifts them up. And he helps those who are humbled. He's helped those who are suffering. I believe he talked about helping the fatherless and the afflicted and the poor, and all the things that he has done for good. And according to Eliphaz, if he were truly doing those things, then he would be blessed. But he's not blessed. And so he must not be doing those things. And all those things he talked about, they must be lies.
Chapter 23. Then Job answered and said, even today is my complaint bitter. My stroke is heavier than my groaning. Oh, that I knew where I might find him, that I might come even to his seat.
My stroke is heavier than my groaning. Did you get that one?
Mm-mm.
Even though he's complaining, he's hurting a lot worse than he's complaining. He's suffering far worse than he's complaining about. His complaining is minor compared to the actual suffering that he's experiencing.
Now, who is he talking about that he might find?
God.
That I might even come even just to his seat.
So the judgment seat to try his case before him. And this is really where he starts to begin to speak against God and claim his own righteousness is greater than God's for God's poor treatment of him.
Verse 4. I would order my cause before him and fill my mouth with arguments. I would know the words which he would answer me and understand what he would say unto me.
Wait a minute. That's serious. Because he's telling God, I'll put my argument against you because you're wrong, you're not treating me right, And I'll already know everything that God's going to say. I'll understand the explanations that he gives me because I'm wise. I have understanding. My understanding is so great that when I deal with God, we'll be speaking as equals. We'll be seeing eye to eye. That's what it sounds like to me anyway.
That's pretty scary.
That's real scary.
Verse 6. Will he plead against me with his great power? No, but he would put strength in me. There the righteous might dispute with him. So should I be delivered forever from my judge.
Yeah, so once he shows God how bad or how wrong he's been, God will deliver him. He'll apologize. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have treated you so badly. I didn't realize how good you were.
Verse 8. Behold, I go forward, but he is not there, and backward, but I cannot perceive him. On the left hand, where he doth work, but I cannot behold him. He hideth himself on the right hand, that I cannot see him. Basically saying, you can't find God anywhere.
Right, no matter where he looks.
But he knoweth the way that I take. When he hath tried me, I shall come forth as gold. My foot hath held his steps, his way have I kept, and not declined.
So once again, he's proclaiming his righteousness, and as we saw in the beginning, he is righteous. He was a good man. The Bible says he was a perfect man, and he has done these things that he said. He has been a good person, but his words against God are growing stronger and stronger as we reach the middle part of this book.
He's not humbling himself by these
No, these words are not
proclamations.
these words are not full of humility at all.
Verse 11. My foot hath held his steps. I already read that. His way have I kept and not declined. Neither have I gone back from the commandment of his lips. I have esteemed the words of his mouth more than my necessary food. But he is in one mind, and who can turn him? And what his soul desireth, even that he doeth.
Now here, that's clean. There's no issue with anything that he said there. And this is one of those phrases that I believe God was speaking of when he told his friends, "Thou hast not spoken right concerning me as my servant Job has." And that's a fact. God had set his mind on doing this, and he did it.
For he performeth the thing that is appointed for me, and many such things are with him. Therefore I am troubled at his presence when I consider I am afraid of him. For God maketh my heart soft, and the Almighty troubleth me, because I was not cut off before the darkness, neither hath he covered the darkness from my face. What is it in that last verse?
Not cut off before the darkness. He didn't die before he was born to know the difference between dark and light. So he was allowed to be born, and even though he's probably 100 and something at this point, he's not taking any knowledge of the give or take 100 or so years that he's lived and experienced good. Because even if this was months or a year, what is a year compared to an entire lifetime? I mean, I've had some pretty bad years, and God took me through them, and I've suffered both because of my own failures and because that's just the way life turned out. And God has taken me through it. And Job is not taking any knowledge of the fact that God gave him those many years of good before this. And he's not taking any knowledge to the fact that God still has the power at this point to give him many more good years ahead of him. Because his focus right now is on the situation. And that seems to be a very common issue among humans. We have a tendency to get stuck in viewing what we currently see rather than
The here and now.
recognizing God's sovereignty in our lives and acknowledging the fact that
His ways are higher than our ways.
He knows what He's doing. When oftentimes when we suffer, it may have no personal benefit for us. Sometimes the things that we suffer, when it comes right down to it, it's for the benefit of others. There have been things that I've gone through in my life that I certainly didn't appreciate when I was experiencing them. And I may not have had any idea why I had to suffer those things at that time. But then 10, 15, 20 years later, something else will happen and I'll deal with some other individual who may be going through that exact same thing. And I can be a source of encouragement because I know what the individual is going through. I recognize, I have sympathy for that individual because I've been in his shoes. I've experienced a similar or same situation. And sometimes that may be the very reason why we suffered a trial. Sometimes it's because God's trying to get our attention because we failed. I mean, that wasn't Job's situation because the book starts saying he was perfect. But God was taking him through the fire of affliction in order to purify him and make him draw him even closer to himself. And sometimes that's why we endure afflictions and trials, not for any wrong that we've done, but simply to help draw us closer to God, to take our eyes off of self, because a lot of time I know that in my life I've found myself leaning on myself rather than leaning on God. And God has to remind me, hey, you need to look to me. And once I recognize that, things have straightened out. There are other times we may suffer and have no idea why and never know why. But the main thing is we cannot get focused on our current trial and do any good for ourselves or anybody else. But we need to be able to recognize that God sees the big picture and He's working all things for His glory. And sometimes we just have to trust that He knows what He's doing.
Lean not on thine own understanding.
In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct thy paths. Any other questions, thoughts?
I think I'm good.
Originally?